Glad to be back.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here with you all today. It's all good.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that? I know I have, especially in New Thought metaphysical circles. Hey man, don't worry, it's all good. No problems, it's cool, no worries, no big deal. Hakuna Matata. We are taught to call everything good, to not let seemingly bad things shake us, or to let life's experiences stop us from being positive. But is it all good? The basic human answer to that would be no. The definition of the phrase, "it's all good," from the Urban Dictionary says, a platitude that covers so many emotions and situations that it says little. Its only real meaning is that the speaker is trying to rise above whatever problem exists without expressing their underlying negative emotions. One of my favorite sayings in Unity is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So in that human experience, we may look at things and call them bad, call them evil, and say that whatever it is shouldn't be happening, especially to good people. Why is God letting this happen to them? Why is God letting this happen to me? God isn't letting anything happen. God isn't doing anything against anyone. God is goodness. God is oneness. God is omnipresence. So, if we believe that, can we get to a place where we can believe all things are for our good? As a prayer chaplain at Unity of New York, I have said all things work toward your highest good no matter what the appearance. And I believed that. But I've been asked how I can be a prayer chaplain and say that all is for your good when so many things seemingly look so bad. Even if not in our own personal lives, how about in the world? How can children starve and people die tragic deaths and we call it good? I struggled with these questions many times in my life, especially during those times when things seemed so dark and painful that I didn't know if I could go on. I too have seen all these dark things happening in the world and wondered how I could know that things are for your highest good when I'm still calling things bad. Now, I have read many books in my ongoing search for spiritual truth, and we call ourselves truth students. And while I was training to be a prayer chaplain, I came upon the book Home with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Now, if you are familiar with his Conversations with God books, I devoured them when I first found them. He says that he never had a direct experience of God in his life until 1992, when he suddenly began hearing a conversation with God in his mind. In these books, he began a back-and-forth dialogue with God. So I'd like to read you a passage from Home with God. And it may seem pretty radical. I know it did to me when I first read it. But I think it's important to entertain the thought, the possibility that it might be true. He quotes God as saying, "Nothing occurs against your will. You cannot die against your will. Nothing happens that you do not want to have happen. You can imagine that things happen that you do not want to have happen, but that is not what is so. And it merely allows you to think of yourself as a victim. Nothing holds you back in your evolution more than this single thought. The idea of victimization is a single sign of limited perception. True victimization cannot exist." So Neil replies to God, "It's pretty darn hard to tell someone whose daughter has been raped, or whose entire village has been wiped out in a vicious act of ethnic cleansing, that no one has been victimized." And God replies, "It would be non-beneficial to speak in this way to people while they are in the midst of their suffering. During such moments, simply be with them with deep compassion, true caring, and healing love. Do not offer spiritual platitudes or intellectual excursions as a remedy for their pain. Heal the pain first, then heal the thought that created the pain. Of course, it is true that in the ordinary human sense, there are those who have been the victim of terrible occurrences and circumstances in life. Yet this experience of victimization can be real only within the context of normal and therefore limited human awareness. When I say that true victimization does not exist, I am speaking from an entirely different level of awareness. Yet this is a level of awareness that human beings can achieve once their pain has been healed. In the book, God also goes on to say that all paths lead home. That there is no path that you can take that will not lead you back to source. No path is better than another. So, for me, judge not lest ye be judged suddenly made more sense. Who are we to judge another in our limited human perception? That my path is better than your path? Since all paths, no matter their appearance, lead back to oneness, and since nothing is happening against our will, then there is nothing to judge. Nobody is doing anything wrong. If God has granted us free will and we believe that, then nothing is happening against our will. That's a radical thought. At the same time that I was reading Neil's book, I was also taking a Unity class on the book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. In it, he says that traditional forgiveness is firmly rooted in the world of humanity. In the same way that the world of humanity holds the energy of duality, so traditional forgiveness polarizes and judges everything as either good or bad, right or wrong. Radical forgiveness takes the view that there is no right, wrong, or good, bad. Only your thinking makes it so. Traditional forgiveness always begins with the assumption that something wrong took place and someone did something to someone else. The victim archetype remains operative. Radical forgiveness begins with the belief that nothing wrong happened and there are no victims in any situation. Nothing is happening against our will, and there is nothing to forgive. Mind blowing. Now that was one of those awakening moments, remembering the truth moments for me. One of those moments that made it possible for me to be a prayer chaplain. Because I could now come from a place that on a soul level, nothing was happening against your will. I could listen and hear your pain and acknowledge it and be present with you in whatever way you needed at that moment. But to also be able to speak from a place of truth when saying that everything is working toward your highest good, no matter the appearance. But how do we wrap our minds around this concept? Especially in the seeming appearance of so much darkness. Well, sometimes it's in the simplest of ways. For me, it was in Neil Donald Walsh's children's parable, The Little Soul and the Sun. In it, God explains to a new little soul that he created nothing but the light, and that all souls are of the light. And I'll read some of it for you. Think of it this way, said God. You are like a candle in the sun. Oh, you're there all right, along with a million gazillion other candles who make up the sun. And the sun would not be the sun without you. Nay, it would be a sun without one of its candles. And that would not be the sun at all, for it would not shine as brightly. Yet, how to know yourself as the light when you are amidst the light? That is the question. Since you cannot see yourself as the light when you are in the light, we'll surround you with darkness. What's darkness? The little soul asked. God replied, it's that which you are not. Then God explained that in order to experience anything at all, the exact opposite of it will appear. It is a great gift, God said, because without it you could not know what anything is like. You could not know warm without cold, up without down, fast without slow. And so God concluded, when you are surrounded with darkness, do not shake your fist and raise your voice and curse the darkness. Rather, be a light unto the darkness, and don't be mad about it. Then you will know who you really are, and all others will know too. So, they go on further with their conversation until the little soul decides that in his next lifetime, he wants to experience the part of the light that is forgiving. But God explains to him that there's only one problem with that. There is no one to forgive. There is no soul less perfect than another. And I'll read the rest. The little soul seemed sad, and the friendly soul came forward and agreed to help. The friendly soul said, I can come into your next lifetime and do something for you to forgive. But why? Why would you do that? The little soul asked. What could cause you to want to slow down your vibration to such a speed that your bright light would become dark and dense? What could cause you to come into my life and make yourself so heavy that you could do this bad thing? Simple, the friendly soul replied. I would do it because I love you. The little soul seemed surprised at the answer. Don't be so amazed, said the friendly soul. You have done the same thing for me, don't you remember? Oh, we have danced together, you and I, many times. Through the eons and across all the ages have we danced. Across all time and in many places have we played together. You just don't remember. We have both been all of it. We have been the up and down of it, the left and right of it. We have been the male and the female, the good and the bad. We have both been the victim and the villain of it. Thus we have come together, you and I, many times before, each bringing to the other the exact and perfect opportunity to express and to experience who we really are. And so the friendly soul explained further, I will come into your next lifetime and be the bad one this time. I will do something really terrible, and then you can experience yourself as the one who forgives. Then the friendly soul seemed to turn serious and said in a quiet voice, You are right about one thing, you know. What is that? The little soul wanted to know. I will have to slow down my vibration and become very heavy to do this not so nice thing. I will have to pretend to be something very unlike myself. And so I have but one favor to ask of you in return. Oh, anything, anything, cried the little soul. What can I do for you? You are such an angel to be willing to do this for me. Of course this friendly soul is an angel, God interrupted. Everyone is. Always remember, I have sent you nothing but angels. Well, what can I do for you? The little soul asked again. In the moment that I strike you and smite you, the friendly soul replied, in the moment that I do the worst to you that could possibly imagine, in that very moment, yes, the little soul interrupted, yes. Remember who I really am. Oh, I will, cried the little soul. I promise. I will always remember you as I see you right here, right now. Good, said the friendly soul, because you see, I will have been pretending so hard, I will have forgotten myself. And if you do not remember me as I really am, I may not be able to remember for a very long time. And if I forget who I am, you may even forget who you are. And then we will both be lost. Then we will need another soul to come along to remind us both of who we are. No, we won't, the little soul promised again. I will remember you, and I will thank you for bringing me this gift, the chance to experience myself as who I am. And so the agreement was made. And the little soul went forth into a new lifetime, excited to be the light, which was very special, and excited to be that part of special called forgiveness. And the little soul waited anxiously to be able to experience itself as forgiveness, and to thank whatever other soul made it possible. and at all the moments in that new lifetime, whenever a new soul appeared on the scene, whether that no soul brought joy or sadness, but especially if it brought sadness, little soul thought of what God had said. Always remember, I have sent you nothing but angels. Now, some of you might be thinking that I've been rambling and gotten off the topic of this talk by now, that I just read you a nice children's story, but what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with gratitude? Well, I'm getting to it. I recently read a short essay by Wendy Dickinson, PhD. In it, she discusses how we have a tendency to interchange the words thankful and grateful. So she decided to do some research and looked up the definitions. Both words are adjectives that describe in part our emotional state of being or feeling. Thankful is to feel pleased and relieved, and grateful is feeling or showing an appreciation of kindness. Her thought was that thankfulness seems to be directly related to what I get. I'm thankful I made it to the gas station in time. I'm thankful someone gave me flowers. I'm thankful traffic wasn't so bad. It's almost like at its core, thankfulness is inwardly focused. In contrast, gratitude seems to be, by definition, outwardly focused. Being appreciative of the kindness of others, a consciousness of gifts given to you, an acknowledgement of benefits. Gratefulness comes when we are tuned in to those around us and conscious of their impact on our lives. Gratefulness increases when we recognize what has been done for us. Gratefulness rises up in the absence of entitlement. Gratefulness comes with empathy. Thankful is easy. Grateful has to be cultivated. But how can we be grateful when so many things around us seem so dark? As my friend, the Reverend Carlos Anderson likes to say, when you are going through the valley of the shadow of death, don't stop and build a condo. Keep moving forward. Keep going toward the light. Remember that you are the light, and that all those who seemingly do wrong are also the light. That ultimately nothing and no one is to blame. I was dating a man who hurt me deeply and broke my heart deeper than I thought possible. I thought at the time that I would never heal, that I would never be happy again, and that I would never love again. That I couldn't understand how he could have done what he did to me. After all, he was a spiritual man. He was the person who introduced me to the Unity movement and New Thought spirituality. How could he betray me and hurt me so deeply? Since I try my best to practice what I preach, at least in hindsight, I go within and frequently examine my life. Once the pain didn't hurt quite so much and I was able to think about this man without bursting into tears, I was able to look at him and start to see him as the friendly soul who loved me enough to do something so bad that I would get to experience being the one who forgives. Without him having come into my life and left it, I would not be standing here in front of you today. Without him, I wouldn't have the motivation to jump into spiritual study. I wouldn't have done so much radical forgiveness work on him and others in my life that I felt had wronged me. I wouldn't have done the radical forgiveness work on myself, forgiving myself for not being perfect. I wouldn't have done so much study on self-worth, and I wouldn't have become a prayer chaplain, and wouldn't have had so many opportunities to be of service to others. So many gifts from just this one man who I thought had ruined my life and hurt me so deeply. What an angel he was. for giving me the gift of being the one who forgives. And to ultimately come to the realization that there was nothing to forgive in the first place. This thinking allows me to be able to look at other people with fresh eyes and ask myself, what gifts are they giving me that in this human experience I might be misinterpreting as hurting me or against me? A Course in Miracles states that nothing I see means anything. I have given all I see the meaning it has for me. I don't know what anything is for. We have often heard the phrase, as God is for me, then nothing is against me. But in one of my Unity classes that I took with Reverend Sean Moniger, who spoke here once, he added, therefore everything is for me. Everything is for me. What a way to look at things. As God is for me, then nothing is against me. Therefore, everything is for me. I try to be grateful every day. Not just the daily thanks I give for my health, for my little used car, for my ability to sing, for water and food and a roof over my head, but grateful for the gifts that are continually given to me by others. Even when I am in the midst of something that seems bad, when someone is doing something against me, I try to step back and remember them for who they really are. An angel who loves me and agreed to give me the experience I asked for on a higher soul level. The more I can do that, the more I can behold the Christ presence in each person I encounter, because I am willing to remember who they really are. Even though I am a spiritual being, I have my human experience days where I feel like things are not going well, where my pain is great and I forget who I am. However, I try to remember to be grateful for at least one thing every day, even if it is incredibly small. Remembering to give thanks with gratitude for the gifts that I have been given opens my heart to the possibility that it's all good. All things are working for your highest good, no matter the appearance. We don't know what anything is for on a higher spiritual plane. So when we are in the middle of something that seems impossible to call good, like the events that transpired this past Friday in Paris, and around the world in Beirut, in so many places on this planet, we can honor our feelings, mourn the lives that were lost, and look for the light that still exists in ourselves and in others. We may not be able to call it good, but we can raise our vibration in prayer to those that need our good thoughts. And we can remember that there is nothing to fear. As Wayne Dyer said, every thought you have in which you're in a state of fear keeps you away from your purpose. When you find yourself in a fearful mode, stop right there and invite God onto the scene. Before I end my talk, I'd like to invite you all to hold a minute of silence as we collectively raise our vibrations and hold the light for all those around the world who are experiencing the darkness. God has sent you nothing but angels.